Adelaja-Kuye, SSA to the Ogun State Governor on Agriculture. Welcome. We also have Mr. Ibrahim Maigari, is the founder, riceafrica.com, and co-founder, livestock247.com. Is also going to be giving us our keynote speech today, and we're very excited. We're looking forward to that session today. Also, to our virtual guests, welcome, welcome, welcome. Do not forget to send in your questions. It will be attended to at the end of the panel discussions. You can also join the conversation using the hashtag FC@5, hashtag above and beyond, hashtag the green dream. All right, so going first, Farmcrowdy was founded November 14, 2016. And in 2018, we decided to go further in pushing the discussion on the revolution in the agriculture industry. So aside from our anniversary celebration, November 14 is a day we celebrate the National Digital Agriculture Day. And as we prepare to get into our sessions, let's begin with a short clip on what this day means to us. All right, so that was our National Digital Agriculture Day video to explain why we're doing what we're doing. So up next, please make welcome our very own co-founder and CEO, Akindele Phillips, who will take us through the next agenda. Over to you, Akindele.
Thank you very, very much, Anu. A big thank you to everyone for joining today's event. I hope you can hear me, Anu. Can you confirm you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfectly. Thank you. Thank you so much. And a big thank you to everyone for being a part of today's event. My name is Akindele Phillips, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Farmcrowdy. It's been an exciting journey, a lot of lessons, a lot of impact, a lot of activities that have happened in the last 5 years, half of a decade. And we are so excited with what we have planned for the rest of next 5 years and beyond that. So Farmcrowdy is that ag tech company that was established first and foremost to solve the inefficiencies in the food value chain. And in 2016, when we started, November 14th, to be precise, we had identified certain pain points of smallholder farmers. So in addressing immediately the deficiency of food supplies in Nigeria, we were quick to realize that, look, if we can solve the problems of the smallholder farmer who constitutes a significant part of the population of the country, then you can address the problem of food deficiency. And the four major problems we had identified at the time was one, smallholder farmers usually have poor access to finance, and because they don't have collateral security, no access to historical data to make a case to get financial support or get some credit for financial institutions. Two, they lack access to good agronomic practices. Three, poor access to viable inputs. And four, access to superior market is usually far-fetched for them. So whether locally or internationally. And fast forward now, we also added a final part, which is our major focus now, is the fragmentation along the food value chain. So what we thought was the easiest thing or the low-hanging fruit in 2016 was the funding bit. Hence why for us, because of the things these smallholder farmers lacked or still lack, which is historical financial records and collateral security, the next option was to crowdfund. So we introduced crowdfunding to Nigeria, and that's because we wanted to solve the funding problem of these farmers. And that enabled us to do so much. And a big thank you to people on this platform, because without you, the crowdfunding fund will have been zero. So it was Nigerians in Nigeria and in the diaspora that brought this to life. So we're able to crowdfund so much to have enabled us to work with in 3 years, over 50,000 smallholder farmers, to work on over 4,000 hectares of farmland, to have produced over 3 million birds of chicken, and much more, to have worked at that time within 3 years in more than 22 states of the Federation of Nigeria. And all of this happened because you all believed in us. And fast forward last year, in the midst of COVID, was when we realized, look, even though we had done so much, we worked with so much farmers, several states, we've not really scratched the surface of solving the food deficiency problem the way we believe we're called to do it. And then we asked ourselves, what can we do to work with more stakeholders in the food value chain and not limit ourselves to the smallholder farmers? Because guess what? The processors are part of us. The restaurants are part of us. The mama buka, those that sell the side corner shops that sell the packaged and processed food are part of these players that need to solve this food deficiency problem. And that enabled us to pivot. What that meant was we stopped crowdfunding because we found out that it was shorter tenured, became too expensive for the smallholder farmers themselves. And so we thought the better source of funding would be from institutions that can provide longer tenured kind of facilities and at the cheaper rates for the smallholder farmers and even all other individuals along the food value chain. So we pivoted and stopped crowdfunding. Now we work with BFIs who have funding funds that meet the criteria I mentioned, longer tenured, more affordable to players. And then now smallholder farmers, whether they produce with us or otherwise, can actually get access to viable inputs at an affordable price because we will have pre-negotiated these prices. Also now farmers can sell their produce, whether locally in the cities or even externally to international market. Farmers now are guided with good agronomic practices. And all of this, these parts, I call Farmcrowdy FC Foods, and we also have FC shops. In summarizing all we do right now, FC Foods focuses on activities that happen in the upstream of the agricultural sector. So from selling inputs, buying inputs, from aggregating commodities, and then getting them across to the precious cells, or livestock, like our usual restaurant buy livestock from us right now. All of that is embodied in FC Foods. And with FC Shops, that is now the plug between the manufacturers of processed foods and your corner shops, your Mama Ngozi, your Mama Kudi, around the corner. So we are now poised to play across the entire food value chain, working with all the stakeholders, no longer limited to smallholder farmers. So the processors are collaborators, and the farmers are collaborators, and the retail shops are collaborators, the bookers are collaborators, the restaurants are collaborators, and we're so happy because that has seen us work. For instance, with over 400,000 food value chain participants as of today, between when we pivoted and tweaked our model to this present time. And that has seen us also enabled us an ability to replicate this model. Fiona will at some point in time discuss where she will discuss what we are doing in Rwanda and now how we started growing in Rwanda. And like what I'm going to leave by saying, we promise to ensure we increase solving this inefficiency across the continent. And wait for us, keep praying for us, keep supporting us, and keep referring us. Thank you so much, and God bless you. And congratulations to all of us. Happy 5th anniversary. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Akindele. You know, I picked something there when you said we're working across all stakeholders, or we're working towards touching the lives of all stakeholders in the food value chain. It means that we're not leaving anyone behind. As we're moving towards the next phase, we are practically taking everyone along with us to enjoy the benefits and the impacts that we have as a company. Thank you very much, Akindele. So up next, I'll be introducing our country manager from Farmcrowdy, Rwanda. Fiona will be having a brief chat with me. Hello, Fiona.
Hello, how are you?
Very well. How are you doing today?
Good, good.
I can see your touch of
excited.
It's really popping. It's really popping. So what's the celebration like in Rwanda at the moment?
We're excited how far we have gone since launching Farmcrowdy in Rwanda. Okay. And as the CEO mentioned, we are particularly in Inpus, trying to really serve smallholder farmers and farmers in general efficiently. So yeah, we are doing great.
Okay, all right. So I know while during Akindele's speech, he talked about our impact in Rwanda, what Farmcrowdy is doing with FC shops in Rwanda. So I will be playing a video just before your presentation for everyone who is still wondering what exactly was Akindele talking about. We'll play the video now for you to understand our impact in Rwanda. Stay tuned.
cyumweru bibiri cyangwa se mu kindi cyumweru ubwo akaba ari kuri njye kandi ku muhinzi nawe agabura ikintu cyo kugira umutwaro wose akeneye wamufasha mu buhinzi bwe arawubona kuko bworoheye za Kigali. Kagame Jean-Baptiste usanzwe ukorana na Farmcrowdy kugira ngo n'ubucuruzi bw'umusaruro tukaba tumaze iminsi dukorana Farmcrowdy dukorana mu rwego rwo kwegera abacuruzi b'umusaruro babafasha kugurira umusaruro mu rwego kugira ngo biteze imbere noneho bikabafasha kugira ngo nabo begere abahinzi begereza umusaruro zirimo imiti y'ubuhinzi zirimo amafumbire mvaruganda zirimo imirama kugira ngo mbese bibafashe kwiteza imbere nabo ubwabo kandi bibafashe mu bucuruzi bwabo babashe kuza badafite inkomyi kandi nabo biteza imbere. Ibyo ni ibintu byiza cyane kuko urumva wa mucuruzi umufasha kurangura nta mbogamizi afite, bituma yegereza abahinzi kongera umusaruro mu buryo bwihuse kandi nayo icyo bibafasha ni ukugira ngo nanjye nongereze ibyo mbaha ku buryo ubutaha iyo bagarutse mbasha kubona ibyo mbaha bitambuye urumva iyo umuntu bishyuriye bimuha imbaraga nanjye kandi akagira imbaraga zo kugira ngo mwongere ubucuruzi bwanjye nabo kandi urumva birabafashije nanjye birabafashije.
Amazina yanjye banyita Nzabagerageza Ernest, izina ry'iduka Tera Imbere Muhinzi, nkorera mu karere ka Kicukiro, umurenge wa Masaka, akagari ka Gako. Ibirebana n'ubuhinzi mbimazemo imyaka igera kuri 28. Nkurikije ko baje banyunganira kubera ko ubushobozi bwari buke nabo bakanyunganira, uyu munsi ndabona ko birimo bigenda neza ndetse ubushobozi bukomeje kwiyongera, ndabona nagera no mu yindi ntera irenze iyo ndimo. Kuba ndi kubona igishoro gihagije bivuzemo ibintu bitatu. Ikintu cya mbere hari iterambere ryanjye mu bucuruzi, icya kabiri hari iterambere mu rugo rwanjye, icya gatatu hari iterambere mu bahinzi mpagarariye cyangwa se ntunganira mu bitekerezo. Kugeza uyu munsi hari icyahindutse, harimo imiti tutari dufite yiyongereyemo, hari kuba naraguye nakoreraga mu mashami abiri, irya Kicukiro n'irya Gatsibo, ariko uyu munsi hiyongereyemo n'ahandi bita Igabiro, nsigaye mfite amacoro atatu. Burya inguzanyo yo ucuruza ufite igishoro gikeya iteka uravunika, ariko iyo ubonye igishoro bigenda neza kuko ibyo uba wifuza kurangura urabibona kandi ubucuruzi bwawe bukagenda neza. Ikiriho gishya kiriho kuri njyewe kuko nagiye gukorana namwe, icya mbere ubucuruzi bwariyongereye, icya kabiri hiyongereyemo kuba narashoboye gufungura irindi shami aho nabonaga rikenewe mu baturage.
All right, so there we have it. We can see the impacts that Farmcrowdy is driving in Rwanda. Let me quickly identify or mention that our special guest, Dr. Andrew Kwasari, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agriculture, is here with us already. Yay, we're excited about that. We also have Mr. Ibrahim Maigari is our keynote speaker for today and will be joining us very shortly. So back to you, Fiona. So we have just watched the video that shows how Farmcrowdy is driving the narrative in Rwanda. Now we'll pull up the presentation that you have for us shortly. All right.
Well, as we wait for the PowerPoint to be pulled out, I think I would add some information regarding the video we just watched. May I?
You can go on.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we launched Farmcrowdy in Rwanda back in August. And it's been a tremendous experience and lessons we have acquired from the ground. And we work with 3 partners, if I may say. One is the farmers themselves. 2 is the retailers or shops that are closer to farmers, as we watched from the video. And 3 are the manufacturers or the importers of those inputs. So we realized the pain point of farmers were to get the inputs, one, on time, but also closer to their farms, you know. And but then realized the main issue is that people who are selling inputs, who are the retailers, all those gentlemen you watched in the video, were lacking cash flow. So you could find that they have a shop in a remote area somewhere, but because of lack of money, they would find having few inputs compared to the demand, compared to the farmers of what they are looking for. So you could find that a farmer had to walk some kilometers from one shop to another, really identifying what kind of inputs they are looking for. So when we say inputs, for people who might not have a background in agriculture, these are seeds, fertilizer, chemicals, any machinery input. So across those are the inputs I'm mentioning. So to solve the issue from the root cause, it was to support the retailers who are closer to the farmers, because we couldn't give finance to farmers. That wasn't the issue. The issue was the lack of inputs, closer to their farms, because they had to come to Kigali. For those who know Rwanda, they would come from different villages to come to the capital city just to look for the inputs. So we are working with these retailers to make sure that their shops are well equipped and they're full of inventory on the pay as you sell model. So we give them the products and they would rather pay us after selling, you know. And to do that and to identify who are the eligible retailers, we have to go back and really have the network of input manufacturers and importers so they could show us these retailers. We had to map all the retailers across the country and identify where are different places that have the pinpoint, the pain more than other areas. So that's how we are doing it. And we have now dispersed about 15,000 USD just within 3 months. And tomorrow I'm happy because they're all coming to Kigali so we can celebrate this achievement.
You can make the presentation from your end now.
Awesome.
All right, thank you. Okay, so while we wait for the video to come up, let me quickly mention that you can join the conversation using the hashtag FC at 5, hashtag the Green Dream, hashtag above and beyond. You can also send in your questions and we'll attend to the questions as soon as we're done with the panel.
I'm trying to.
Okay, let me also quickly remind us that we're joined by Dr. Kwasari, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agriculture, will be taking us through the panel discussions. We'll also be joined by Dr. Angel Adelaja, who will also be joining the panel discussions, as well as Mr. Ibrahim Maigari, the founder and co-founder of riceafrica.com and livestock247.com. Farmcrowdy at 5. If you're just joining us, welcome. I'm welcoming our special guest. Everyone who is connected to us right now is here to celebrate this remarkable year with us. We are happy to have you here. We're very excited and we're looking forward to all the conversations I'll be having right here at this webinar discussion. Other lined up events for today are the discussions that I'll be having when the panelists come up. And then we'll be taking you through all the strategic ideas, strategic businesses that Farmcrowdy is currently running for you to understand where we're coming from, where we are, and where we're going to in this 5th year, as well as taking questions. We'll be fielding questions from our online attendees who will be sending in their questions as soon as our panel discussions is over. We'll be running through that. So we'll take you through the slide now for us to see the presentation Fiona has for us. All right, Fiona.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So the pictures, as you may see, those are the people who owns these shops. So those are the ideal shops you may see. The below picture was the meeting, really trying to explain to them what we do as Farmcrowdy and to understand how they want the model to look like. So we didn't just give them the model, rather they came up with the model that they know that would work for them, and which was the pay as you sell model. And as I mentioned, and as the video you heard from yourselves, is that the main issue was to make sure that farmers are served efficiently. And the only way, or one of the main ways, was to make sure that these input sellers are well equipped. Their shops have full input that any farmer, from horticulture to livestock to someone selling cereals, that would want whichever season, you know. So for example, in Rwanda, if we have 3 seasons, so it's when season A is mostly for cereals. When it comes to season C, it's more of horticulture. So you could find that because there's not enough capital, the horticulture, for example, smallholder farmers are lacking on inputs closer to their farms. The second slide, please. Yeah, as I mentioned, within 3 months, we're able to disperse 15,000 USD, and that is what the inputs we dispersed. This varied from fertilizer to chemicals. And then we have registered about 1,000 retailers across the country. We have about 8,000 of them, but these are the ones that we have mapped so far, given to the farmers that are really facing the issue more than others. And we have the 15,000 USD has been dispersed to 15 retailers or shopkeepers of those shops. And the model is that they pay us after they sell. So we don't want to put them on pressure of paying back as their traditional financial institutions will do. So after they pay us, because we know them, we have built that relationship, we go back and we collect our money back, the 15,000 USD we had dispersed to them. So far, none default have been made because they know the pain. It's not like we are solving something we only want as Farmcrowdy to earn money, but it's something that society is looking for. And through that, it was possible through different partnerships. For example, we have done partnership with Equity Bank here in Rwanda, and the partnership is around to make sure that we are able to collect our money back without having to go on the ground. We know all that we're in the Farmcrowdy is here to support agricultural sector through technology. So if you want to collect the money, any retailer would go on the equities menu. So Farmcrowdy is on the equities menu. So we all know how if you want to buy airtime or you want to buy electricity. So today, if you want to pay Farmcrowdy's money, you go on the equities and you choose the Farmcrowdy. You pay us so that we can give you the more money if you're looking for something more money. Also in the discussion with MTN, so we are able to disperse. You know, we already say there's no data and all that, and that's why these people have not been accessing money from financial institutions, traditional financial institutions. And we are doing so. We are solving that by making sure that we take that step further to give them money with no current known data, rather than we are using different alternative data. So the alternative data is going back to the importer, as I mentioned, to really see how this retailer have been working with this the importer. Have they been getting credit themselves, and how have they been paying back? And other alternative data from how much are they renting their house, how many employees, you know, how much school fees they give for their children. So we can analyze who deserves the loan and who would be able to pay back. Yeah. So the last slide before I take a lot of time. The last slide is showing different pictures. We have plenty of them, but that medium woman is from a region called Musanze. It's north part of Rwanda, and her and the husband, they really thank us on a daily basis, because there was a lot of demand. This is the area that they grow a lot of Irish potato, only the area across the country in Rwanda. So you could imagine the demand they have. So we had to support them with their inputs, and they pay us whenever they have sold. And the other gentleman from the beginning is the other person who mentioned that he was able to increase the shops by one. So before Farmcrowdy, he had 2 shops, but as soon as we supported him, he realized that he has demand in other area. So he expanded with 1 shop, so which is something that we could be very excited for, because it's an impact really, because if we can, it's not only the farmer who is able to access inputs, but the family of this gentleman, you know, he is earning money through the expansion of his retailers. So the other picture is me really explaining to them who we are, because we don't want to make sure that they sign something they don't understand. So we have to sit and we go through anything that has to do with who is Farmcrowdy and how do we operate. So thank you very much, and yeah, enjoy the anniversary.
So filled up with every of the information that you've given us about what Farmcrowdy is doing in Rwanda. Hoping that by this time next year, when we're running this again, we'll have more testimonials from this impact stories. Thank you very much, Fiona. All right, up next, we'll be taking you through our keynote address. Giving the keynote speech is Mr. Ibrahim Maigari. Mr. Ibrahim Maigari is the founder of riceafrica.com and co-founder livestock247.com. Livestock247 is an ag tech company connecting stakeholders in the livestock value chain with the technology that works. Welcome, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. Very lovely to have you here with us.
Same here, and congratulations to the entire Farmcrowdy team for an awesome job. And I'm so excited and I'm honored and privileged to be given an opportunity to give a keynote at this August occasion. And the Green Dream, I so much love that dream. And as an early observer of the dream, I was fortunate to be around the founders before their 2nd anniversary. So I think I have a kind of a bird's eye view of before, during, and after. But what I want to point out to everyone here listening and joining us from all over the world is to really understand that, and especially to the Farmcrowdy team, that this celebration is not just for Farmcrowdy, right? This celebration it's for an entire industry, because I think what Farmcrowdy has been able to do unknowingly is basically creating a sector within a subsector within the sector, like creating an industry. The entire agri-tech industry in Nigeria will not be where it is today without the daring, pioneering, and sacrifices of the founders of Farmcrowdy. So I believe this celebration is it's an industry celebration. It's for all of us that are in the agtech space to say thank you to Farmcrowdy for blazing the trail. Thank you for the lessons, for learning from their mistakes, because being a pioneer comes with a lot of responsibilities, like making mistakes and learning from those mistakes early and perfecting on those mistakes. And that is why Farmcrowdy is where it is today. So on this note, I want to say thank you very much for what you've done for the past 5 years. And let me share with you, yesterday when I shared the banner with on one of my platforms, a friend actually sent me an inbox. He said, "Do you mean they are really 5? I thought they are like 10, sort of." So it tells you how the brand has evolved, and this goes to also explain to you the importance. But because when we say 5 years, we are just talking about calendar of existence. But in terms of activities, you know, the past 5 years has been disrupted. 1 or 2 years have been disrupted. So in terms of impact, we are here celebrating the impact that the Farmcrowdy's activity in 3 years within 5 years has created. So well done. So the green dream, I think the founders of Farmcrowdy really wanted to use technology to create that transparency for people to really see the agricultural space, know what is, and see the potentials. So Farmcrowdy in the past 5 years has been able to highlight the opportunities within the agricultural space. And this, I think they've done extremely well. And I will always say, I mean, excuse my French, I say that Farmcrowdy has brought the cool in agri. I mean, Farmcrowdy has made agri sexy again. Excuse my French. And making the agricultural space tech-driven has attracted a demography that is so important for the future of our continent, the youth. People like you, ordinarily, you wouldn't have been interested in agri if not for the convergence of technology and agriculture, right? So here we are today with a lot of young men and women across the continent picking up careers, learning about, setting up startups, bringing up ideas, creating innovative solutions to really take the agricultural sector in Africa to the next level. And this is all because Farmcrowdy has pioneered, had blazed the trail, and brought in the cool once again. So thank you, like I said, once again. And what about the future? Where do we go? I expect, as a participant and a beneficiary of their creativity, I expect Farmcrowdy to lead the industry to its full potential. Like I said, the founding vision of the promoters and the founders of the business, if we quantified around the investment that they've created, the aggregation and the whole streamlining of the value chain from mobilizing funds to production to aggregation to down to consumption. And if you look at the impact that it has created in job creations and stuff, it tells you that the vision of the founders of having from that green dream, it's been implemented. And this also goes to tell you from what the founders have been, some of the founders are doing in other space, from what my good friend Akindele is currently doing at Farmcrowdy, repositioning it and the reconstruction going on, the pivoting from crowdfunding to where it is now, to the activity that we've just seen, excellent innovations in Rwanda. And I think you have a very good lead person there in Rwanda. And what you guys are doing there is quite exemplary. Well done, Fiona. I was so impressed with what you're doing for the smallholder farmers. If you look at what Onyeka is doing with TRIPS and what Tokwe is doing at Crowdivest, and I think it goes on to trace to you the origin of their intention of their dream is to create impact. And I think impact is going to be measured by what we are going to do in the next 5 years. And I'm absolutely confident that the next 5 years will be much more eventful than the first 5 years. So what do we hope to see in the next 5 years? We expect Farmcrowdy to lead the industry in terms of in Africa, in terms of bringing greater efficiencies and lower prices. And as more people are coming into agriculture and more people are having access, we expect more efficiencies and lower prices, which is, of course, a logical progression. When you have more production, it leads to more prices. We expect Farmcrowdy to lead the space to create safer growing conditions and safer foods through technology. We expect Farmcrowdy to lead the space to reduce environmental and ecological impact. We expect Farmcrowdy to lead the space in improving the participation of women in agriculture. I'm a big fan of women development, and I would like to see agriculture playing a very big role. So I'm so excited to see Fiona engaging a lot of women in the value chain in Rwanda. And we expect also Farmcrowdy to improve on agronomic practices by bringing in technology to make farm extension services easily accessible. With what they're doing, connecting farmers with inputs, and now from what we heard in Rwanda, bringing in financial inclusion, their partnership with the banks there, with the bank there in Rwanda, and making it so accessible, using technology to make it accessible. It improves financial inclusion. By bringing financial inclusion into the mix, this gives our rural farmers access to dispose of their produce right from their farms. And we expect Farmcrowdy to lead in that space. And of course, we expect Farmcrowdy, as they've aggregated production, what I'm personally interested in doing, I cannot wait to see what Farmcrowdy will do in aggregating consumption. I don't know if some of you may not understand the importance of aggregation consumption. Farmcrowdy has excellently aggregated production by linking farmers and funds and input suppliers. So the downstream is about consumption. When you aggregate consumption, it gives the farmer at the upstream genuine and instant data to know what it's going to produce. So we're going to move from the subsistence level of farming in Africa, whereby our farmers go and produce without knowing what actually they're producing. By aggregating consumption, farmers in Africa will be able to know what, when, how, where to produce. So this is what I can say for my keynote, and I expect and I pray and I wish the team an awesome celebration. I'm looking forward to an exciting 5 more years. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ibrahim Maigari. Good to know that we're on the same page as to how we're driving the conversation around going green and aiming higher. So let me quickly let you know that Dr. Kwasari, Andrew Kwasari, is already on seat, is already waiting to join in the panel discussion, as well as Dr. Angel Adelaja. Welcome. So up next, you'll be taking us through the next line of call, which is the panel discussion. Over to you, Mr. Ibrahim Maigari.
So thank you very much once again. Like I said, it's an absolute privilege to lead this discussion with an awesome panel of consisting of my friend and brother, Dr. Andrew Kwasari. Dr. Andrew Kwasari is the SSA to the Vice President of Agriculture. To most people, people that know him, Andrew Kwasari is sort of like, I believe, one of the brains behind the policies of agriculture in Nigeria today. And it's a personal pleasure for me to call him a friend, to see him as a partner. And I have tremendous confidence in the future of this country if people like Andrew Kwasari will be championing our agricultural space. So Dr. Andrew, you are very much welcome. Thank you very much for having the time to be with us this morning. And Dr. Angel Adelaja, my sister from Ogun State, she's a pioneer, a serious entrepreneur that has started a lot of green enterprises in the past, and to the extent that her state of Ogun State deemed it necessary to invite her to bring her private sector background to bear in public sector, and she's been doing quite well. We've been working with her closely for the past couple of years, and now we've seen the impact that Dr. Adelaja has created in shaping the Ogun agri space. So it's a personal pleasure for me to welcome my sister, Angel. Are you here with us, Dr. Angel Adelaja? Are you here?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm doing fine. And you?
Good, good. Long time.
Yeah. So the discussion is we're going to go through some set of questions, and but before we step into the questions, I would invite Dr. Kwasari to give us a few points based on the fact that we're all celebrating what they have been encouraging to do, convergence of the private sector and the public sector. So I'd like Dr. Kwasari to give us a few minutes before we start asking questions, and then of course, Dr. Adelaja too will just give us a few minutes, and then we'll go into the question straight. Dr. Kwasari, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you, sir.
All right, good morning, Dr. Kwasari. Welcome to our webinar session.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Just as Mr. Ibrahim has said, he wants you to give us a word. I mean, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary, knowing what Farmcrowdy has done in the past 5 years. What are you looking forward to in the years to come from Farmcrowdy?
Well, thank you. I think Ibrahim has summed it up properly. It will be a mirage to think that the way of the future is through brick and mortar approaches to financing agriculture or to solving the ecosystem constraints that are well known in the agri space today. So I think the way of the future is exactly what Farmcrowdy is doing. How do we innovate? Not innovate just to provide financial inclusion or innovate to de-risk through insurance or innovate to connect to the market, but innovate to do all. So a kind of wholesome approach that Farmcrowdy is championing is the key, and to do it in a more innovative, feature-oriented, digital manner. I think that is it. And especially I like the particular comment made earlier by, was it the CEO, who said that they Farmcrowdy quickly realized sustainably to support agriculture.
All right.
The organization have to move away from Farmcrowdy crowdsourcing funding to some more stable and long-term finance mixes, hybrids between grants and long-term loan or impact investment or equity. I think this is just it. I believe that this is the way for the future, and I'm really happy to be celebrating. I know Onyeka very well. It's a personal friend. So I think this is a good thing, and I hope that we can have a little bit of time to speak around this. But for me, is that if a business is built on try to solve problems and also to evolve with the problem, context, and the solution being provided, then that business will have a future. So I think Farmcrowdy, the ability to course correct, to learn, and to adapt to the realities is the way of the future. So I think it's a healthy organization with young minds, inquisitive minds, innovative minds, with a drive and passion. I'm very confident that I'm happy to say a happy 5, and I hope we will do happy 50 some days. If people like me are not there, my children will be there.
All right.
So,
all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Andrew Kwasari. If you're just joining us, this is Farmcrowdy at 5 webinar session. Before we go straight into the panel session, I would like to do a quick introduction of who our panelists are. I'm starting with Dr. Andrew Kwasari. Dr. Andrew Kwasari is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agriculture, as well as the head of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Developments and Projects for Agricultural Coordination and Execution Secretariat. Welcome, Dr. Andrew Kwasari, to this session. Also joined is Dr. Angel Adelaja-Kuye. Dr. Angel Adelaja-Kuye is the Senior Special Assistant to the Ogun State Governor on Agriculture. She is a development consultant and entrepreneur. Dr. Angel founded Fresh Direct Produce and Agro-Allied Services, an urban farming and ag-tech company in Abuja, connecting youths in agriculture and technology. And like we have met our keynote speaker, Mr. Ibrahim Maigari. Mr. Ibrahim Maigari is the founder, riceafrica.com, and co-founder, livestock247.com. Livestock 247 is an ag-tech company connecting stakeholders in the stock value chain with, rather than the livestock value chain, with profitability. From studying law at the University of Maiduguri and an MBA at Ahmadu Bello University, he uses his businesses to promote food security, improved livelihood, and access to a structured market in the food value chain. Welcome. I would not go on without also introducing our co-founder and CEO of Farmcrowdy. That's the person of Mr. Akindele Phillips. Welcome, 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 welcome to the session. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. So let's go straight into the questions, and I have some few questions I would like to throw to all the panelists. The CEO of Farmcrowdy, Akindele, welcome, and Angel. So what can you all say about the current level of food security in Nigeria's post-COVID era? Post-COVID era. I mean, we all know what we've been through for the past 1.5, 2 years now. So starting from Dr. Kwasari to Angel to Akindele, what can you say really about the current level of food security in our country post-COVID? Dr. Kwasari, Angel, Akindele, this question is for all the panelists. Let's start with Dr. Kwasari.
Perhaps we'll have Dr. Angel go first.
Sorry. Okay, all right.
Okay.
Angel, go. He's stuck. Yeah.
No, Ibrahim, I was asking, can you repeat the question again, please? That was my comment, sorry.
Okay, so what can you say about the current level of food security in Nigeria's post-COVID era?
Very interesting question. So it is important that we context, I mean, it's no brainer that food security is a challenge to Nigeria, especially now with the COVID. I don't know if we are in position to speak about post-COVID now, because really, honestly, I don't know. When I look at the trends, especially the numbers in Europe yesterday and Asia, I don't know whether we're already in post-COVID. So if we're going to speak within the context of 2021, 2022, what is food security outlook like in Nigeria? It is more fragile than ever, than before the COVID. I will rather say that my comments should be seen within the context of COVID. I don't know if we are post-COVID now. We hope that we could be getting to post-COVID maybe by this time in 2022, when we should have had proper vaccination and maybe also stability in the strain of the virus, hoping that it doesn't throw up newer strains. And therefore we can contend with what we are dealing with or what is known today. But for the unknown, it remains. So more fragile, I think, more fragile because of key reasons. Nigeria's situation is not only the COVID and therefore post-COVID, it's also that the COVID complicated or compounded by the insecurity, further exacerbated by the current value of our Naira. So if you look at these three big elephants, you will know that we have a rather more fragile food security than ever, and therefore requires more innovation, more innovative ways to reach to farmers. And if you ask me what will be my thought process towards solutions, will be how can we have a combination of different models, having answered that we have a more fragile food security than ever during and probably post-COVID. And this is global. If you have been following the trend, you see the current situation the US is facing. The president yesterday backed off from his comments of temporary food inflation and general inflation. But honestly, apart from a few items on the list, the concern of an average American is food. Yes, I know gas and vehicles came up. So there's an overall food inflation globally, and it is on the back of COVID, but Nigeria's situation is peculiar. So we have insecurity that is stopping farmers from even effectively utilizing what I will call abysmal productivity on which we have, so the smallholder farmers have sustained this country, the clients of Farmcrowdy, these very small, vulnerable farmers with all of the challenges that Farmcrowdy try to address. There is one that is state field of play, security. Farmcrowdy cannot deal with security, but I think technology might help. For instance, if there is a way to still get the farmers engaged, those that still have the resilience to still be on their field, to get them in a less noticeable way, to have a financing to connect to market, to connect to value addition. I mean, create a kind of innovative funding that could support our drive for food security post-COVID-19 without necessarily being in the public, which is also a risk factor. If you look at the current mixes of factors that drive the insecurity, with kidnapping, for instance, people will look for tip-offs, who has money, who has just sold something, or who. So if there's a way to do this cashless kind of transaction and farmers can still be on farm, I think in a softer way, innovative thinking could help also the major work that the state has to do. State actors have to deal with insecurity. So insecurity complicates this, and we would like to see more the role of innovators like innovative architects like Farmcrowdy and Co. Of course, not to my Gary knows my thought towards his companies, what they do to help this. So summarily, food security is more fragile, but there is hope. And the hope for me is more on technology that is driven by empathy, that can really help farmers access, even without without insecurity. Farmers have these core problems of lack of finance, appropriate finance, please. And I would like to keep this terminology, appropriate finance, because I have seen many things out there, but is it appropriate to agriculture? Appropriate financing, appropriate insurance, appropriate kind of market hand-holding and linkages. So I think that we can get over this, but please, let's not make any mistake. The challenge is daunting. We have 200 million plus mouths to feed. On general, 90% of the productivity of the smallholder farmers, I mean, 90% of our agri output is from the smallholder farmers. They're the worst hit by COVID. They're the worst hit by food security in terms of disruption to their normal way of doing things. For instance, if I don't know how much analysis Farmcrowdy has done, but I have understood that 90% of the funding in smallholder agri today in Nigeria comes from savings, family savings, personal savings, and whatever, not from credits. So if people have not saved in the last 12 months in COVID period, how complicated, again, with the insecurity, how then can they continue to be in play? So that means post-COVID, I see my resolution around that is a more fragile food security is the fact that the base of funding to the smallholder farmers who are financially excluded today is coming from savings that has not occurred on the back of COVID. So post-COVID, we must find a way to get funding to the people that traditionally rely on their own personal savings, family support, and all of that. Today, we have to find a way to get their credit. So
thank you, Dr.
System needs all hands on deck. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kwasari. Dr. Angel, are you still with us? Can you give us your perspective with the same question?
Yes, I'm with you. And I think that I have to, I'll just add a little bit to what Dr. Kwasari has said, because he said most of what was in my head. But for me, as an epidemiologist and someone in the agric space, I think it was something that for me was inevitable when you think about food systems and planning, and for nations and states and even local governments to plan and make sure that their food systems are less fragile. But it was great because I think was an eye opener for policymakers, for implementers to see that, we really need to have some things in place to make sure that this fragility is taken care of. And so like in Ogun State, we're on the ground with the farmers, and I'll say that we're post-lockdown, not post-COVID, we're post-lockdown. So when we talk about the situation that we have on ground, our farmers could not even get to their farms because there needed to be some coordination between security officials and others. So what we did was we said, farmers are essential personnel. They need to be engaged. They need to be able to have means to showcase that that they're able to go to the field. We said, if you have your AFAN card, if you have any card that shows that you're working in the field, if you have your hoe and cutlass, security personnel should not stop you. For haulage of food products, the focus was really on making sure that the companies had some sort of certification, some sort of certificate to showcase that they were hauling agri-produce, so that police would not stop them. Because the biggest thing that we found during the lockdown was that the value chains were so disrupted that people still had food that they were harvesting. That was around the time where some people were harvesting and they couldn't get it to the various destinations, to the off-takers who are ready to buy. And these things are perishable products. Even some of the programs that the state did in partnership with the federal government, you saw that farmers that were transporting egg to be able to give out to vulnerable populations were stopped. And so that level of coordination is really, really important. And that's where partnership comes into play. But I think also it's made us enlightened about the role of farmers, the role about agriculture. And at the end of the day, here in Ogun State, we say Abeloba, the farmer is king. We tend to discount agriculture, but COVID-19 helped people to really understand that if not anything, you must at least eat. Even if it's one meal a day, you must at least eat. And so what we found beneficial and what we've seen come out of that time post-lockdown for us has been the leveraging on technology. Our farmers were in the field during that time to make sure, because we envisioned that there's going to be shortages, there's going to be issues if our farmers do not get to the field 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 11 months from now. So we made sure that they were in the field. Then we leveraged on technology and we partnered with organizations that were using technology. We focused a lot on trying to aggregate farmers to certain locations in the best that we could. And we see that moving forward, the best way for us to really maximize the efficiency of our farmers is to bring on board companies like Farmcrowdy and others that help with market, being able to provide market for the farmers, being able to provide inputs in a seamless digital way, being able to provide geotagging for the farmers. All of these things help to unlock useful, I think what was Dr. Kwasari's term? I think it was right-sized funding or relevant funding for the farm.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Appropriate financing for the farmers. But ultimately, I think for us, we also say that in moving forward, even partnerships with companies doing cold storage, that are doing logistics management, are all part of what we want to bring on board and what we have been bringing on board. And we see that it makes it easier for the farmers. And we hope that even at the pilot size, we can scale this up. I think some of the work that Dr. Kwasari has done during this time was, who are the farmers that need interventions? Who are the farmers that needed inputs at that time? Who are the farmers? So even just us being able to know them. And one thing that we've done here in Ogun State is that we're able to put together a program for our tomato farmers, where the tomato farmers don't just get financing and mentorship, but they also get healthcare. You cannot effectively produce for a nation if you don't have something to take care of yourself, because if you're down, then production is down. And so I think even at the national level, we need to start to think about how do we also finance not only inputs for the farmers and insurance for their crops, but also healthcare for the farmers who are in the field, are in charge, because that's also a major part of food security as well.
Right, thank you very much, Dr. Angel. So healthcare for those in the farms. Thank you very much. So Mr. Ibrahim, what do you think about these responses that we've gotten from our two panelists? Do you also share the same view?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dr. Kwasari and Dr. Adelaja just hit it on the nail, straight on. And from my own little perspective, I just want to add on the basis of, from the angle of insecurity that Dr. Kwasari mentioned. We're still in the COVID. I also believe that we are not yet post-COVID. And when you couple that with the insecurity going on in most farming communities, and that's something else. I believe the solution towards that is to create what I think Dr. Kwasari will shed more light later on, these crop clusters, crop producing clusters, whereby we move closer to the farmers, because coming from what he said, how do we now make these farmers that are resilient and are bold enough, how do we give them the confidence to still go to their farm in spite of insecurities? How do we create opportunities for them to produce and sell? This will be possible if we move closer, if we create those clusters, and creating those clusters will not be possible if there's no convergence between the public and the private. The public is exemplified by what the people like Dr. Kwasari are doing and policies, and private is like what Farmcrowdy is doing. How do we bring processing? How do we bring markets closer? How do we now put technology on top? And then, for instance, I'll just give something that one of our organizations has noticed. Like Rice Africa, last year we've been in the rice space for about a year plus, and we've noticed something very, very important. Most rice farmers, most rice producers complain about the quality of the grains. You have broken grains, you have sharp and everything. And we discovered that Nigerian rice farmers harvested about 3.2 million hectares in 2019. That is before the COVID era. That was the last statistics. But 92% of those land, the hectares produced were done manually. So we're talking about importance of mechanization. And I was so happy when I saw Farmcrowdy talking about going into mechanization. When you bring mechanization, this is a total addressable market of, in the rice sector alone, a total addressable market of over 380 million USD untapped. By bringing mechanization in rice farming, you are going to give these farmers the boldness, because they know the rice harvester will harvest without spending so much time. Within hours, you've harvested a hectare, and you can link them off straight to off-takers, and they're out of their farm. So this will improve production and will take them away from insecurity that Dr. Kwasari has highlighted. One interesting thing that I would like to get the opinion of Akindele, I just want to throw this into Akindele.
Before you go to Akindele, I want to ask for your opinion. What is the role Nigeria is playing in the global food trade, and how can Nigeria contribute to solving these inefficiencies? You've mentioned some inefficiencies while answering the very first question. So what's the role we are playing currently in tapping into the global food trade?
I think we're not doing badly. If you look at what companies like Farmcrowdy is doing and other ag-tech companies that are linking Nigerian producers to giving them global marketplaces now. With Farmcrowdy now, farmers can sell their produce abroad. So I think technology has really opened up the potential. The world knows a country like Nigeria that is massively agrarian and with the population of 200 and something million. Export was not our concern because we have massive deficit internally. But when we improve, and if we improve and we get to the level of exporting, I think we have a very good opportunity based on the experiences of pioneers like Farmcrowdy to link up to supply what the world needs. But first of all, I think our emphasis should be internal. Let's solve our food crisis internal. Then before we start looking at X and everything, I think we have a lot to do internally to address those gaps. But if it comes to that stage, I'm very sure we're capable of doing that, because technology has a way of making the world a global village.
Right, so we have to solve our problems internally before moving outside. All right, so for Dr. Angel, I want to know, do you think Nigeria is doing—
I want to put this on what my brother was saying, because the other thing I've noticed is that because of the economic situation that we have on ground now, we we noticed that a lot more farmers are looking for how to export their goods and how to get Forex through the exportation of their products. And I think that that's not a bad thing. And the two can be done together. I think it's just a matter of proportion and ratios, because what you'll find is that that gives them the ability to scale much faster and to be able to reinvest into the country. And that's what we're looking for, is to see how we can, I mean, it shouldn't be a situation where exportation is more lucrative to the point where we're starving in our own country, but we must have balance where we know this proportion of the items are being produced for local consumption, and they're being produced at prices that are so low that Nigerians are comfortable food-wise, and for export so high that we're able to bring in enough revenue into the country. So I think that there needs to be a balance there. We see that with castor beans, we see that with others. So let's try to see how we can manage the way in which we get certain companies to export and look towards export while still meeting the local demand.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Angel. So let me go straight over to Mr. Akindele Phillips. Do you think Nigeria is doing enough to drive sustainability in the agriculture industry?
Thank you very much, Anu. And I'll use this opportunity to say a very big thank you to Dr. Kwasari for being here. Thank you so much, Dr. Angel. Thank you for making our time for this event. And thank you, Mr. Ibrahim, my brother, for making our time to be a part of this conversation. And to address your question, I would say no, there's still a lot more to be done. The fragmentations that has always existed was brought to the more light with the emergence of COVID. We now realize there's real big fragmentation. Activities happening on the upstream end to the downstream. Fragmentations, we're even getting seeds or inputs to the farmers, which is what is being solved in Rwanda. It's a major problem. The activities on the farmland themselves, being able to apply mechanization, being able to scale, that's another level of fragmentation. Then post-harvest losses is another thing. How do you get this produce from the farm gates to the various processors or to intermediary players that can get it to whether in terms of exporting or to the cities? That's another area. And then even from that to the processors of production. So it's the emergence of COVID had made it clearer to us that we need more private sector players in this space, solving some of these problems. And it also means a lot of opportunities. So I dare to say it's an opportunity to encourage everyone. If you have an idea, all you need to just find a niche part along the food value chain, solving it. I mean, for instance, cold storage is a major problem. We lose a lot of vegetables to post-harvest losses. So imagine we can have a Farmcrowdy that's focused on cold storage alone, because that's what we want. And that's the big picture for Farmcrowdy. The theme, the green dream, and above and beyond. The focus for us now, we found ourselves now to be approached to want to take it on a continental level. We have been pushed now to do more things across the continent. So we're finding ourselves talking to different parts, governments across the continent, encouraging and making recommendations in terms of policies, and also working with private sector entities in a number of African countries currently, and letting them know how we believe they can solve these fragmentations. We are going to be seen as collaborators, which means we'll be working and not competing across the continent, because we need to solve this food deficiency problem. Thank you
very much, Mr. Akindele. So you talked on policies, which brings me to my next question. And this question is for Dr. Andrew. What are the policies currently in place to boost government and private sector engagement for the common farmer? Dr. Andrew.
Thank you very much. So I'm noting very important comments from the speakers. I'll come back to it. So let me address my question. Then I will come back if I have opportunity to give my own, to just add to what the speakers have said in the foregoing. So In Nigeria, what is government doing policy-wise to to create a handshake or to enable a sustainable, efficient, if not efficient, effective handshake with the private sector as it concerns a kind of incorporating public, private or public market sources for finance, insurance, and all of that. I think government policy-wise, and please, I want you to understand this, let's context it with our reality. I think policy-wise, and I've read quite a number at the national or subnational, Nigeria is very good at crafting policies that really, if you read them, you realize that every constraint is itemized. The challenge here is implementation, and I'm going to give you a good analogy to understand that. So are there policies that say that the role of government, for instance, is as an enabler or de-risker to make sure that private monies, whether equity or credits, flow into the agri space to cover capital and insurance needs? Yes, there are policies. Have the policies worked? No. Or to some extent, have they worked well? Really, no. So at the policy level, for government to function, for an economy to function, you need two sets of policies. You need the fiscal policy and you need the monetary policy. And the two are different sides to the same coin, meaning that you cannot peel off your fiscal policy from your monetary policy. In other words, your fiscal and monetary policy should have convergence. So at the middle of that coin is the convergence or pivot. Here in Nigeria, I can tell you 6 years advising government at this level. I think we still have our biggest dam is the divergence between our monetary policy and our fiscal policy. So for instance, we've got nice programs, but they are not driven from the perspective that once the fiscal have defined the areas for intervention, the monetary must oil the mechanism, must bring the finance. So I want you to just think, madam, what would have happened if Nigeria's intervention in agriculture monetarily, take commercial commercial agriculture loan scheme, commercial agriculture scheme, it's commercial agriculture credit scheme, I think, or take anchor borrower, or take any of these monetary policies. What can you imagine what would have happened if it was working with the fiscal policy to say, take the green alternative that says 16 constraints, all of the things that you are talking about here, even Akindele just spoke about, the fragmented areas. So take the 16 constraints and say all of anchor borrower is to go into talking to the likes of Farmcrowdy or Nigeria Flour Mill or Livestock 247 to say, listen guys, here is source of funding from government. It's cheaper, but we just want to enable you to drive on, even if it is just guaranteeing your investment. So all of this will just make sure that if Farmcrowdy can source additional funding to really go to the operation or the financing of the operations in the field, that government is backing it. Should there be anything, you can fall back on it. Imagine that type of alignment. Rather than then you take the government funding and go and start to create an inadequate fiscal policy where you are driving an anchor borrower, for instance, that does not really speak to the needs of the benefiting or targeted farming population, or where you do not literally have capacity to really create that handshake. So why do all? Stay at the enabling. So I can tell you that there are policies, but the policy executions didn't work well. there are policies also that by nature are divergent. They are divergent by nature. So I think what Nigeria needs is a clear, coordinated discourse at government level, national and subnational, to make sure that there's synergy between fiscal and monetary, and that execution happens. I think I'm comfortable with an effective execution. By my experience, I can dream an efficient execution, but I know it won't happen overnight. So if we can even gain effectiveness on making this happen. So I think this is the biggest elephant in the room in constraining the achievement of the dreams of likes of Farmcrowdy, honestly. Because if government can just remain as an enabler, and an enabler that is transparent, in the sense that what the Farmcrowdies of this world, the livestock 247s and all, the Nigerian farmers or whatever want, they want to go to sleep. They don't want to begin to look at who do I know, how do I get that? No, once policies are rolled out, they want to go to sleep, that it is helping to oil their business mechanism. And that is either we have overreached by trying to do all the way and not stopping at the enablement, or we have gone ahead with distortion rather than synergy. So I think that is where we are. But I hope that with conversations like this and the type of thought process that needs to go into public policy implementation, because I think the danger on the formulation is less than the danger on the implementation, that more often than not does not happen at all, or do not happen at all. This is my own take on that, honestly, and I'm just speaking to you frankly as someone that has a little.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Andrew. Thank you very much. So I would love to have Dr. Angel's thoughts on this. If there are policies on the state level addressing a synergy between the private and the public sector in terms of driving engagements with the farmers.
Can you say that again, please?
So I wanted to get your opinion on this particular question for the state level in terms of the synergy between the private and public sector, as well as the government in boosting or driving engagements for farmers, for the common farmer. Okay, if you can hear me, Dr. Angel, please.
So sorry, I had unmuted.
All right, thank you.
Again.
All right.
Saying that, I just want to piggyback off of what Dr. Kwasari had said, that it's not just a initiative for the common farmer, like you said, but it's a national imperative. It means that everybody has a role to play and everybody must get engaged to make sure that we revolutionize the agri sector. It's private sector driven, it's government driven, it's grassroots driven, it's driven by farm communities, everybody. And you know, agriculture is one sector where every other sector has a role to play. Road development, statistics, finance, health. Everybody has to come on board to make sure that we can improve our food system. Without our partners, nothing can be done. Yes, at a state level, for us, one thing that we've tried to do is we do understand, and I agree with Dr. Kwasari, that if there's no synergy and if there's no coordination in the implementation, you can never succeed. And then you also have to make sure that you monitor and evaluate the interventions to make sure that you actually are getting the meaningful outcomes before you can even take another decision. And I agree that that's where, Nigeria sometimes doesn't get it right. In Ogun State, we have various programs that we choose, like for anchor borrowers, for example. We chose to embark on anchor borrowers program, and we said we're not going to make the same mistakes that others made. The first thing that we did was we called Kebbi State to ask them, where did you go wrong? Where did you go right? Tell us your story. And we know the reality of what they have seen. We reached out to others, private sector. You have high repayment rates. Where did you get it right? Where do you feel like you could have improved? We wanted to get a holistic understanding of the project before we now dovetailed in. And then we also made sure that the program was uniquely crafted for Ogun State. So there were a lot of requirements and policies at the CBN level that we said, no, we don't agree with this. No, this is okay. No, we want states to be able to drive this. We want to be able to know who the people are at the state level who are driving it in terms of the farmers associations. We don't want imposition from a national level that doesn't understand the uniqueness of Ogun State. And so when you're able to stand your ground on those things and craft and tailor it to what you need, you're likely to see better outcomes. We're still in the middle of this program, but we're also monitoring the program to be able to look for the outcomes. So we'll be able to tell you more about the effectiveness of this program, once we're able to measure, at the back end output and everything like that. But so far in terms of farmers engagement, it seems pretty good, and we need to do more. The other thing that we've done is we took that program and we looked at what constraints may have been there, and we decided we want to do something that has been initiated by government, that has been designed by government, but is totally driven by private sector. And so we partnered with Sterling Bank and some other organizations to be able to do a similar program, which is a financing program, but with tomato farmers. And we said, we're not doing this if it doesn't include irrigation. We're not doing this if it doesn't include healthcare. We're not doing this if it doesn't include extension support and the likes. And so I think when you can I think partnership is key. When you can bring people on board, the right people, and it can be driven so that even if government hands off, we're here for another 2 years, and by God's grace, another 4 years. But I want to see that in the next 20 years, we have been able to see the fruits of our labor when it comes to driving the tomato value chain. And so that means that private sector actors are the ones who are going to be driving it. That means that the farmers themselves being equipped to take decisions on their own, being mobilized into cooperatives that can drive and advocate for themselves is also quite important. And then of course, our partners it's not just private sector. We work with the federal government. We work with different agencies to be able to make sure that they are, so for example, we were able to get seeds from Raw Material Research Council for the farmers. And I think that also when it comes to private sector, we want to be able to create an enabling environment where we can kind of promote creativity and innovation for them. So we started the Agricultural Technology and Innovation Lab. And so it's a nexus. It's at the Ogun State Tech Hub. And I'm proud to say that it was the first sector that was given space priority in the Ogun Tech Hub. You would usually think that it's going to be something like fintech or so, but the governor said ag tech. He wants to make Ogun State a hub for ag tech because you have a lot of organizations that have their headquarters in Lagos, but their farmers are mostly in Ogun State. We want them to be as close to the farmers as possible and still have the same amenities as they would in Lagos. We have a train that takes you to Yaba within an hour's time. You have Wi-Fi. We're doing Wi-Fi across the state and the likes, but we're also looking at how to make sure there's also Wi-Fi and electricity in rural communities where the farmers are, because you cannot have a tech-enabled company, and then you get to a rural community where there's no Wi-Fi or there's no network at all for the farmers to engage. We want the farmers to be able to be carried along digitally, just as the companies are driving agriculture digitally.
Thank you very much, Dr. Angel. I know I picked you talking about doing a review to know where we're getting it wrong so that we can address that before we venture into future projects. So talking about where we're getting it wrong, Mr. Ibrahim, I want you to address this question. Are there limitations to breaking new grounds in the global marketplace for farmers in Nigeria?
Yeah, this is an excellent question. This excellent question. Let me give you from the perspective of what our organization, Livestock 247, has been doing, and I'm sure Dr. Kwasari is very much aware of. For instance, if you're talking about limitation, for the past couple of years, Livestock 247 has been lobbying, pushing, disturbing people like Kwasari to have a national animal identification and management system. And this is not just because we want the livestock value chain in Nigeria to be to suit our business model, but no, it's also because we want the livestock value chain in Nigeria to open up to global standards. Nigeria is a member of the World Organization of Animal Health Countries. Nigeria is a signatory to all the covenants that the OIE has established, basically you find it difficult to export legally to either Europe or America or one of these advanced countries livestock products from Nigeria. Even though, like I said, our main attention is not export per se now, but when we get there, right, we want to have the opportunity to compete globally. The lack of animal identification and management system in Nigeria has stopped, if not for recent coming in of Burger King, 3 major global food chains refusal to come into the Nigerian market is basically because of the lack of a functional animal identification and management system. Companies like McDonald's, Burger King, and Subway. Fortunately, Burger King started about a week ago, and we are currently in discussion with the team because of Burger King's risks journey now into the country. We are in discussion with another organization that's going to lead one of the leading brands to come into the Nigeria, because the market, this is a country of 200 and something million people. Lagos is a state of over 20 million people, and you don't have a McDonald's brand. I'm not pushing a McDonald's franchise here, but when you go to Namibia, a country of 2 million people, you have various McDonald's brands. Go to Ivory Coast, they're all over there. And I think this has a lot to do with our lack of those limitations that we mentioned, that is not allowing people to come in and we cannot export. Apart from exporting, coming into the country of these global brands will lead to job opportunities, will lead to transfer of technology and so on and so forth. So yes, there are a lot of limitations as far. Go to the crop sector. If you look at the rice value chain now, last week the federal government was talking about imports. I've always been talking about this. The reason why Nigerians go and buy imported rice is simply because of the quality. Even though this government has done tremendously well in terms of the ban on local ban of importation through the land borders and to improve the local production, but we still have a long way to go to meet up to the global standards in terms of export and so on and something. So, the African Free Trade Agreement is an opportunity for all of us to key into. I believe so. So yeah, but before doing that, we need to set up people like Kwasari to help us make sure that the policies and the regulations and those limitations inhibiting us from doing what we know we have the capacity to do in terms of policies, in terms of de-risking and stuff like that. So I believe there are a lot of limitations, but we're going to get there. I'm confident that with leadership of organizations like Farmcrowdy, when the conversation is, let's keep on talking about this, and people like Dr. Kwasari will do something about it. Thank you.
All right, yes, we will keep talking about this. We'll keep having this conversation to find solutions in this sector. Before I go on to the next question, I want to speak to our online participants. Please be reminded that you can send in your questions. I will be taking them after the panel discussion. All right, so how do you think we can achieve sustainable food production on a global scale with so much dependence on small scale farmers? This question now is to Dr. Angel. I want to know, how can we grow small scale farmers to middle or large scale farmers in Nigeria?
Thank you so much. I think that the way that we do that is just what we're doing right now. For example, in Ogun State, when I worked at the National Poverty Eradication Program, our focus was on a graduation model for poverty alleviation. And we also now here in Ogun State look at a graduation model for farmer engagement. So in many of our programs, we may start you on a quarter of a hectare, we may start you on a hectare. And the goal is for you to be able to take part of your profits and reinvest it, or for us to see your success and reinvest in you to be able to scale up to 5 hectares, to be able to scale up to 20 hectares. But it's about hand-holding them to understand that relationships are about consistency, relationships are about being focused. And so what we do is we handhold the farmers. It's not just about good agricultural practices. It's also about, empowering the farm communities. It's about teaching them about financial management and financial inclusion. It's also about making sure that they understand the importance and the power of numbers. And when I say the power of numbers, it means group formation, making sure that I may not be able to do this on my own as one farmer, but if I come together with other farmers, we can actually work collaboratively to get certain funds or to be able to pool our money together to invest. And I think it's just about, everybody looks at agriculture from the perspective of themselves, where they are profitable. But what we forget to realize is that the average farmer is the one who's always gets the short end of the stick. And so I think, there was someone who said we need to have compassionate policies or compassionate implementation. Yes, we need to be compassionate in the way that we invest, in how we prioritize our budgets, in how we make sure that agriculture is inclusive for everybody. Because when you look at it, we cannot manage engagement with smallholder farmers forever, in the sense that somebody cannot remain a smallholder farmer forever. There are going to be people who may be smallholder farmers. What will their children be? Are their children going to run away to the city, or are they going to see the value and opportunity in agriculture and see that investment in agriculture? Because when we talk about agri-investors, it's not just about the large scale companies. Smallholder farmers are investing in agriculture. They're investing their savings into agriculture. They're investing their livelihood, in agriculture. And if we want them to continue to do that, we must make sure that they're seeing it as an agribusiness. They're able to have access to the different interventions that, for example, so many of these financial interventions, you have to apply online. How do you get smallholder farmers to be engaged if you don't have a mechanism to reach them in the grassroots, to help them to understand that, yes, they may not be able to use QuickBooks to manage their business, but they have books. They have books, they keep records in their small little ways. So I think we need to make sure that the interventions we have reach the grassroots. I think there is always a way where innovative technologies and young people and SMEs, the role I feel of MSMEs is to bridge that gap between the large corporates and the rural farmers. They're more patient, they're more willing, and they have better relationships with the farmers in the field. Some of their parents were the farmers in the field. So you see that MSMEs and startups are sometimes willing to get their hands dirty, and really willing to go into the rural communities and work with the farmers in a way that sometimes corporates don't see the profit in, or don't see, they don't seem to have the time to do. And then of course, government. Everything that we do in Ogun State is for the farmers and making sure that they scale. So most of our programs are stepwise. So if you start in this program, there's always an exit. We never do a training if the training doesn't come with an exit strategy to implement what it is that you learn. So if we're training you on fish farming, then we're also making sure that we're empowering you to be able to invest in fish farming. If we're training you on poultry, it's experiential learning, and then how do we graduate you out of that? We just did a program where young farmers were able to get 1,000 birds each, and then the profits from that 1,000 birds, we used that as the collateral for them to be able to get larger scale poultry houses. So the initial investment in them for the 1,000 birds each was for them in a shared space that we had with supervision and training. Now that they're supervised and trained, they also help us train the next batch. They also have their own poultry facility. So these are things that we try to do to make sure that it doesn't stop there. And we're always happy to see those people who have come out, who have become entrepreneurs because of the interventions that we have. The other thing is making sure that they understand relationships. So for example, if you come through our programs, you have to be able to end up having a good relationship with any corporate that may have partnered with us. So when we hands off with you, that relationship is still there. So I think just being able to train them to understand that business is about relationship building, and you don't have to have every skill, but you can work with others within the value chain to bring those skills on board together. So.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Angel. So I really like the part where you talked about building relationships with these farmers. So even after they're done with undertaking the scheme, they're still a part of the system. It's not like they're done on their way. Thank you very much for that insight. This is for Dr. Andrew now. Do you think Nigerian businesses are equipped to make contributions in the global food order?
Thank you very much. So please, I'm going to take this question about the Nigerian participating in the global food order or trade or whatever. But before that, quickly, let me just say a few words on the last question that Dr. handled very well. So it is all about, about what is our developmental strategy. So I hear this always about the role of the smallholder farmers versus commercial farming or large scale. And I want to, Madam, your question was that, can Nigeria continue to rely on smallholder farmers? I think farming, rely on smallholder farmers. When will they move to middle class and large?
Yeah, can we grow them to middle scale farming?
So it's a good question, but we need to understand that what type of growth do you choose? Are you choosing organic growth or you are choosing prescriptive growth? And I will explain to you, because both of them are possible. They don't yield the same result, and they are not, on sustainability count, they also come with different levers. So what is the context of Nigerian agriculture? So I like numbers a lot. So in this country, land ownership, agri land ownership, 63% is through hereditary passage from household to household. So I want you to understand the 63% of the arable rural agricultural farmlands are passed from one farmer to another by lineage of being, by your right of being in a family. What does that mean in our economic growth? Second thing is that, what is the yield today? So the question for me, when you ask me commercial agri, and people always don't understand, and I don't hope to be understood even today. When you say commercial agriculture, what comes to my mind is bottom line. What is the input cost and what is the returns on the three capitals, land, labor, and finance? So what's the yield per square meter? And we need to understand this if we're ever going to make headway towards organic transition. And I like when doctor said, do you want their children to continue? So that question is the type of desire that a policymaker makes. But what is immediate now is, how can Nigerian agriculture improve its yield? We are a third to a quarter of global yield. On cereals, I think we are a quarter. That is the average yield on all of our cereals put together is a quarter of the global. I think we are about 1 point something, less than 2. And then, and it's 4.5 globally. And we are around 1.5 or 1.8 cereal put together. Everything cereal that you know, madam. Everything cereal. So the question for us today is, how do we, and Dr. said something towards the end, and which is clear, we need to really, that is where we should hit. It's not how they transit to middle or large scale farms. It's how do we gain efficiency in increasing yield, because yield determines the bottom line. And bottom line is fundamental to Farmcrowdy's business. If your bottom line is eroded, you are going to nowhere, even if Farmcrowdy should have 1 million branches. And that's why when you read books like How the Mighty Have Fallen, you'll understand what it means. It's not about the size and the growth. It's the bottom line that determines everything. So the policy that I would like to see is every constraint on the path of increasing the yield of the smallholder farmer and connecting the smallholder farmer to market, to processors, to credit, appropriate financing and insurance should be the drive, so that then we will avoid the Mao experience in China by coalescing the smallholder farmer land to create large farms and creating at-scale poverty in rural communities that mandated China to disaggregate these lands again and support smallholder farmers appropriately. So for me, that's what I want to just say. And then let me go back to the question you put to me, madam. You said that, how do I see the play of Nigeria in the global food order? So first and foremost, I will tie this to the issue of trade. Let me just use one word, and I try to explain that word. Maybe it will make sense, and just pardon my thought process. That the key thing today is about food systems, and many people have alluded to food systems in the various descriptions today. How do we develop a food system that can handshake with AFTA, can handshake with global trade, can handshake with anything. So food systems are developed by making sure that demand is the first and last king, so that anything you do upstream is meant to really speak to what demand exists today and make sure that all the issues, the components, the 4 components or so, primary production, secondary, tertiary, consumption, and trade, that these 4 things, you are oiling the wheel that the machine, the mechanism works well. Nigeria lacks one thing that I can describe in 2 words: quality infrastructure. What does that word mean? Or what does that phrase mean? Quality infrastructure is your springboard for global trade. Quality infrastructure means that you have a mechanism that ensures that your primary producers are producing what is demanded by the market. It could be local, regional, or global. And second, that your quality infrastructure means that you also have the wings to take this thing from the primary producers and get them to their destination. Now, we lack quality infrastructure completely, and any part of this quality infrastructure. Take, for instance, how difficult it is to export from our ports, whether it is seaport or airport. It's incredible. It's the worst. It's the most complex anywhere in the world. But that is, I've started at the trade side. But look at what is produced. Megari said, we are unable to send anything out of this country, especially livestock, to send anything, unable, because there's just no assurance. So when you break quality infrastructure, you begin to look at them at SPS level, at what the international trade or WTO regulations and rules say, and all of that. Or then you begin to understand, but let's stick to quality infrastructure until and unless Nigeria begins to A, have an appropriate policy for developing quality infrastructure, and B, implementing a quality infrastructure. UNIDO started something around 2014, towards the 2013, 2014. And we've been trying to push it. It's still been mentioned, but have we really? We've been conversing around single window for 6 years, or even 7 or 8. It has not happened. So participating, madam, at the global food system or food trade or being global food order does not fall out of blue sky. It springs up from brown ground. So quality infrastructure, until we are able to have it and to appropriately context it and to solve the constraints that allows free flow of demandable products in right quantity and quality, then we will not be able to play in global food order. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That's really, really strong. I like what you said when you said we have to solve the constraints and then the free flow of demandable contents. And this brings me to my next question in terms of contributions. Now, this question is for Mr. Ibrahim. So with the revolution of different happenings in the agriculture space and the emergence of various agri-tech businesses, in what ways can these businesses make very strong contributions to farm stability, rather food stability?
Thank you very much. Before answering your question, as usual, I always want to align myself with the wonderful perspective of Dr. Kwasari. And like I said in my intro, I don't know if you remember, I said, I believe I have confidence in the agricultural space of Nigeria because of people like Dr. Kwasari. If people like Dr. Kwasari have opportunity to implement all these policies that he's been talking about, and if you can read in between the line and the demarcation between policy formulation and implementation, I think that's our major. That's what my major take from what he has been saying. I always get educated, enlightened, and really inspired listening to him all the time. So please keep on doing what you're doing. Don't give up. Don't give up on us as a country. We keep on hanging on. So back to your question. I think we have a lot to do as players in the agri space to provide food sustainability, not just in Nigeria, but across the globe. I think we've just scratched the surface. We have a lot to do in terms of improving mechanization. I've mentioned in my intro, in my keynote, that what we hope to see next in the next 5 years of Farmcrowdy is basically a template that I want other agtech companies to follow. Farmcrowdy as the de facto leader of the agtech space. So if Farmcrowdy goes that direction, it is inevitable that most agtech firms will go that direction. We have to use our innovations, our internet innovations, and to like I said, to create greater efficiencies and safer and lower prices, which is key. And Dr. Angel mentioned something that I took very seriously, not just in providing funding or providing inputs. She mentioned something that I wanted to throw the question to Akindele, because I heard him in one of the webinars that we were together mention something like that. How do we also take care of the livelihoods of the smallholder farmers, like from health to education of their children? If we create an ecosystem around the smallholder farmer by improving his health or the health of the family, bringing education closer to the smallholder farmer, bringing banking services closer to the smallholder farmer, that will now give the smallholder farmer the foundation and the stability to produce more. And I think that's the direction that Angel was talking about. It's not just about bringing inputs or bringing finance. What about the person that is in charge of that? So I think active farms should also look into that. And that was what I meant by safer growing conditions and safer foods. Like I mentioned to you briefly, what we are currently doing. Last year, in terms of our practical experiences, we bought tons and tons of grains from aggregated rice farmers across the country. And we noticed something. Most of the rice paddy that we take to the rice mills, at the end of the day, you find out that adulterated. There are mixtures of chaff and a lot of other things. And it came as a result of the manual harvested. So no matter the quality of the seed you provide, no matter the funding that you give, no matter the support you give the farmer, if you don't tackle that issue of mechanization, you at the end of the day harvest what he has produced manually. Manual production. Let me give you an instance. An acre of land produces manually, when you are harvesting for rice, you harvest about 25 bags. But when you are harvesting it with a machine, you get about 35 to 37 bags. So it's not about improvement of quality, it is also improvement of quantity. And importantly, it has ecological impact, because you will use less land. Because when you're mechanizing, when you're harvesting mechanically, you use less land, you spend less time. All the drudgery that comes with manual harvesting, you have more time to spend with your family, because instead of spending 10 hours in the farm and get yourself vulnerable to kidnaps and whatever, you spend maybe 1 or 2 hours and you go back and stay with your family. So these are the directions that I would like agtech farms to look into. Let's do more of impact-driven, appropriate engagement. I would like to borrow this word from Dr. Kwasari. I think he's directing those words to us. So we should be less commercially driven, and we should be appropriately engaging with these communities of smallholder farmers and improve on what they're doing. I think we have a lot to do in that regard. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. So I want to know if Mr. Akindele also agrees to this line of thought in terms of what agri-tech businesses can do to make strong contributions to food stability.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ibrahim. I mean, we've always had this conversation that you need to look at the players and holistically. It's only a healthy farmer that can work on the farmlands, right? And you also need to protect the farmer, and the means at which he consummates his transaction should be safe for him, which is one of what Mr. Ibrahim has been solving. And we discussed on how to ensure that the farmers and the members of their family, who are essentially the major support system on the farmlands, are healthy enough. How do you ensure they're able to go to school if anything happens to the breadwinner? It's the kind of structures we've worked with underwriters in creating products. Interestingly, we are used to experiencing this. When we started in 2016, it was hard convincing any private sector underwriter
to provide any form of products to the smallholder farmers. They saw agri-card not so nice, too risky. And then fast forward down the line, almost all major underwriters have one form of product or the other for the agricultural space. So we've gone a step ahead to now try to convince them, and thankfully that's working, to provide products that helps protect the livelihood of every player along the food value chain. So including ensuring that there are things in place for their kids to go to school, at least the public tertiary institutions within the country. So in summarizing, and what we said earlier on is we're going to be doing more collaborations now beyond Nigeria, within the continent, to see how we can continue to encourage and work with private sector institutions to providing solutions and solving the inefficiencies across the food value chain. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akindele Phillips. We started receiving questions from our online participants. Please note that you can send in your questions and we'll address after the panel discussion is over. So my next question is for Dr. Angel and Dr. Andrew. What are the policies currently in place to boost government and private sector engagement for the common farmer? So let me have Dr. Angel go first.
I think we've spoken about some of these, but I guess I'll talk from the point of view of Ogun State. And then Dr. Kwasari can talk from the federal government level, even though some of those policies are actually also helping us in the state. For us, there's the relationship that the Ministry of Agriculture has with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment and Ministry of Rural Development is so peculiar and so close, because each of them has to work hand in hand. Ogun State is unique because we have one of the largest industrial hubs across the state. We have a high number of agro-allied industries within the state. One of the things that we also try to do, we're also one of the few states that we have a very strong rural, urban, and peri-urban agricultural productivity in the sense that we have urban areas, we also have very rural areas. And so while our farmers do supply many of these companies, a lot of these companies do get their products from outside of Ogun State. And what we try to do is make sure that for the farmers that we have here, we strengthen their relationship with the off-takers. We try to make sure that they are fully keyed into the opportunity that the off-takers have. We try to have the industries drive some of these programs. We have a focus on outgrower models. We think that that works for our farmers, and we think that that helps our farmers a lot. We also try to make sure that the farmers have focus on group formation. So we work a lot with the farm associations. And for those who are not in farm associations, we try to make sure that they're clustered together. In terms of policies at the larger scale policies, one of the focuses for us have been interventions to make sure that roads are being created to rural communities to make sure they can evacuate their products. Also that the roads towards areas where industries are also taken care of. We have partnership with the African Development Bank for the agro-cargo airport, because we do believe that that's a great opportunity, not just for the industries, but for farm clusters to be able to take advantage of being able to send their products across Nigeria, to ECOWAS, across Africa, and to the greater world. In addition to that, we try to also make sure that for the companies that are coming into Ogun State, we have a one-stop shop for agribusinesses under the Ogun Invest arm, because we know that the more industries that come in and the more processes that come in, the more opportunities for our farmers to be able to evacuate their products. We also have the Food Crops Market Board, because we understand that pricing stability is important, and we want to make sure that the biggest issue, especially for processors and even for the farmers, is that fluctuation in the price. And so the Food Crops Market Board buys up a lot of these products off season to make sure that they can ensure price stabilization across the year. Even the market boards make sure that at least the markets are regulated. I think there's a big focus on making sure that we're able to track where the foods are coming from, who the farmers are, so that if any situation like COVID happens, Lassa fever is there and other things, there's a level of traceability of our products. And then investment into international markets and making sure that farmers have places where they can consistently bring their products and know that they get some level of returns from what it is that they produce. And then, of course, investment in infrastructure. So one thing Ogun State has done is focus on cluster farming. So like even just for our tomato program, we have 72 clusters across the states in all the local governments. We've been able to provide land for many of these clusters to be able to farm together, where they have the land, they have the irrigation there, because in the Southwest, irrigation, land clearing is a big issue, number one, but then also irrigation is another big issue for us. And then in terms of using technology, we also are, and this should be coming out before the end of the year, the agricultural land allocation portal, because people have issues in getting access to land. The Southwest, we have dense forests and uncleared land. And so we want to be able to have people in the agricultural value chain get access to the farmlands in a reasonable fashion. It should not take years. It should not take decades, as some people have said it has taken to even get access to agricultural land. It should be something, my governor has said, within 28 days. And so we're using technology to be able to resolve that issue. And once you get to your farms, there should be security. So the policies that we've had, we've also put out the policy on cattle grazing. And so the policy now is that there should be no grazing. It will take effect soon, but there should be focused on ranching and also focused on collaboration with the communities. So there's no issue with people if they want to bring their cows into the state, but there needs to be a relationship with the host communities. There needs to be an agreement so that they're grazing it within a controlled area that has been apportioned for them to use before onward distribution within Ogun State or to other states. So it's very, very important because of security issues and because of relationships between the host communities and the herders. And then also, we understand that youth are the future of agriculture, both rural youth, urban youth, and everyone in between. So being able to make sure that they have access to our extension workers, to our farmers, to corporates. We try to be that big uncle. Everybody has that uncle that opens doors for you. The state tries to be that uncle for a lot of young startups that have really great, fabulous ideas and want to be able to pilot those ideas with farmers, scale those ideas if they're marketable and if they're useful for the farmers or for the communities and the likes. We would love to see more companies like Farmcrowdy partner with us on our agricultural technology and innovation lab to be able to make sure that more companies like Farmcrowdy spring up. I think that the more technology is used to drive the agricultural sector, the more we'll start to see that people are finding solutions to the gaps in the value chain and that they're able to come up with tech-driven solutions to be able to make sure that productivity is improved. And like I'm not sure who said it earlier, but we're focused on making sure that the farmers have higher yields because of course you're going to bicker over the price of something when your yield is in 20% of what you produced or 50% of what you produced. But when you're really productive in what you're growing, you know that it's margins. You've made enough of it to be able to sell comfortably and with ease. And so you'll see that those savings, the farmers are comfortable, they've benefited, but those savings also trickle down to the processors. It also trickles down to the end user for price uniformity. And then I think lastly, for us, I think overall in the sector, one of the biggest, it's not really a policy, but you cannot drive any of this without budgeting for agriculture. And so agriculture has gotten a good chunk of the state's budget for land preparation, for input supply. And then we also try to make sure, because the state cannot do it all, we also try to make sure that we partner with those who are investing in farmers. So we brought a lot of social impact funds that invest in the farmers as well. And then we bring private sector on board to also invest in the farmers. So with that collaborative effort, we're able to see more movement in the value chain. But like I said, it's not just about having great policies. I think Dr. Kwasari said that too. It's not just about having great policies. It's about how you implement it. It's about who you bring on board to partner with you to drive to drive those changes, and how you institutionalize it, not just in government, but in the minds of the farmers, in the market spaces, the end users, so that they are the ones, it's the demand that is driving some of these initiatives.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Angel. Dr. Kwasari.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So, as we all know, we're Nigerians. I mean, for those that I can see, I mean, I know there are people from the international community. So this administration is in its second bid, and it has a strategic policy focus, the priority areas of the government, 2019 through 2023. And there are 9 key policy deliverables. And priority number 2 is enlarge agri production for food security and export. So under this, there are 5 strategic policy areas to drive this enlarged agri production for food security and export. First is what we call the mechanization drive. So that is number 1. And under it, we have 2 projects or policy supported projects. We have the Green Imperative with the nation of Brazil, the Federal Republic of Brazil, with financing from Deutsche Bank, Brazil Development Bank, and Islamic Development Bank. This policy supports that mechanization should be seen in a new light, not government importing technologies for upstream and downstream agriculture, but rather enable credit in kind. So technologies that come as credit to operators who will then manage technology penetration, but charging fee for services, so selling services. And under this policy, we have each local government analyzed and selected to either play in the upstream. So we have 632 service centers to be created for supporting primary productivity, or play in the downstream, anything from
All right, so it looks like we're having some network connectivity issues, but while we're waiting for Dr. Andrew Kwasari to join us again, we want to let you know that we received questions from a number of participants. From Dayo Adebesin, we see your question. From Tubosu Fashola, we see your question.
Aggregation to Ghana marketing, 170 commercial LGAs or urban, and there is a priority area. And hello?
All right, so we can hear you.
Can you hear me, madam?
Yes, you're back now.
Oh,
yes.
Sorry about that.
All right.
So number 2 is that when I was rounding up on mechanization, that there is a separate component being channeled or driven through African Development Bank that seeks to create staple crop processing zones. I think SCPZ 2. We are still working on negotiating that loan, but for the mechanization, the Green Imperative with Brazil, we've received all approvals from FEC to National Assembly and everything. So just to kick off. The second component of the priority 2 is access to finance. And under that policy, what we suggested was, how can we restructure Bank of Agriculture that it can work with likes of Farmcrowdy and Co. in the issue of driving public and private capital sourcing and insurance for farmers. And that work is ongoing. Then component 3 for priority 2 is access to market. And basically, how can we deal with the issues raised here? Smallholder farmers, if they manage to be efficient in their productivity, to enhance their productivity yields, how can we then aggregate? So we think.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Andrew Kwasari, for that contribution there. Very impactful. We've had a very, very insightful discussion there from talking about policies to what to expect.
That commodity exchange, pro aggregators, maybe individual exchange, and the government needs to depart of yes, boards or commodity marketing boards of the all, but go the market way, private sector driving commodity exchange. So that is the key concern of component 3. Component 4 is production enhancement, and it's heavy on National Livestock Transformation Plan. Doctor had mentioned Farm Livestock 247 has been in the design of the National Livestock Transformation Plan, and we're working with state governors. The challenge with transforming the livestock, especially cattle production in Nigeria, is not about building ranches. Yes, they're very important, and that's the core, but the know-how. So we think that government should use her own investment, which is 49% of the total investment, to build pilot ranches, to train pastoralists for adoption of the modern way. Because today ranches are not meant to, ranching is not the same thing with ranching that you know before. Otherwise, then we'll be playing into the murky waters of environmentalists against greenhouse gas emission, which cattle production is a major contributor in the agri sector. So we are looking at carbon neutral or net zero ranches by incorporating crop, livestock, and trees system. So right now, that policy has taken off. We have funding to build the first model training ranch in Nasarawa and one in Plateau. We are working on funding to build one in Kaduna and Adamawa in the coming weeks to start the work. What I mean, these 2 states have their funding, and then there are other states, about 22 states in total, will get this type of funding and build this first model ranch to work. So when doctor said, if you want to come into Ogun with your cattle, but when you come into Ogun, you see a model ranch. And I would even say that if the policy should be sustainable, before you come into Ogun with your cattle, go and see what is the model for a modern ranching in Ogun. Can you acquire land? How does the state government help you with facilities, pasture seed, fencing, tagging, all of that? So this is what, and then the last one, component 5, is capacity building. And under this, basically what we said is, Nigeria has at least, or anything between 40 to 70 million people involved in primary agriculture, all of them smallholder farmers. So we need to know our farmers. And on the back of COVID-19, we managed to start to say, let's systematically know our farmers. And we've done now above 6 million records across all the wards in this country. So at least we have a footprint of who a real farmer is, small or large. So component 5 really is, how do we enumerate and create record, create reliable database for farmers, and in the categories of livestock or crop or aquaculture, also by size, by gender, by age. So basically this will provide a kind of incentive to now craft appropriate inclusion, financial, insurance, market inclusion, fair trade agreements or contract farming, infrastructure for ensuring quality, because all of these things need to have some data behind it. What type of knowledge is lacking in the tomato farmers to be able to sustainably grow for hens out of Ogun State? We need to know it. And I know Farmcrowdy has been part of the platform partners we are working with to try to see if we could pilot, having known the farmers, how can you do create an ecosystem for ag exchange where farmers can come on one platform, get access to finance, get access to insurance, also good agronomic practices, and we develop more manuals and sell back in a seamless way, boots on the ground, starting from the very local, small clustered farmers, and then can aggregate and domesticate supply chain back to Nestle, back to Nigeria Flour Mill, back to. So I think basically these are the current policy and drive of government, and there are 9 priority areas. Priority area number 2, a large ag production for food security and export, and has 5 components, and that's what I just ran you through.
All right, Thank you very much, Dr. Andrew Kwasari, for this policies that you revealed out for us. I'm sure persons who didn't know that these policies were in place now know that they can plug into these policies. Thank you so much. That was a very insightful discussion there from the lineup that we've had. We've been able to address our topic, which is the Nigerian agri-tech dream, how we can boost future solutions or sustainable solutions in the global market space. Up next is a presentation on one of our strategic business unit, FC Foods. Enjoy.
Hi, my name is Obiluya and I lead the FC Foods team at Farmcrowdy. And the FC Foods team, we create access to markets for farmers, and link them up to premium buyers in the B2B and B2C categories. In that sense, we are helping customers get fresh food produce in real time, while we help businesses access their raw materials for production at the time when they need it and at affordable rates. We use technology to facilitate this process and capture data, which helps us solve the food deficiency problem, not just in making food available, but also in making it affordable to consumers and businesses who need it for their production all year round. We're looking in the near future to scale these solutions across Nigeria and in more countries in Africa. This will help us be able to solve more food accessibility problems for consumers and solve the problem of post-harvest offtake for the farmers. That way we're able to curb post-harvest loss and increase food security across Africa. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for staying tuned with us on the Farmcrowdy webinar series. Like I mentioned that we were going to take in questions from our online participants. I'll read out one question here, and it says, thanks to all the panelists, Nigeria is never short of great ideas and people who can articulate them, but the implementation has always been bereft of genuine doers or actors. I would like to see actionable and trackable steps by government in driving the engagement and coordination. I have expense of farmland in Ogun State. What is Ogun State doing about improving the access to the farm? So this question now is for Dr. Angel Adelaja.
Yes, Ogun State has a large expanse of agricultural land. What the governor has done is focus on developing roads, rural roads through the Ministry of Rural Development, but also feeder roads as well, and roads towards industrial areas also. So you'll see them working on the road to Abara. You see they've done the road from the Shagamu Expressway to Abeokuta, because that access in between Flower Gate, where we have a lot of processors, and Abeokuta also has a lot of farm communities as well. You also see that we've also done bridges through VCDP, which is Value Chain Development Program. That's IFAD funded in partnership with the state. And so you'll see that in rural communities where not all, because we can't do everything at once, and the task actually is very daunting, but you'll see step by step that road access is increasing, and that's one thing. Then on the other end, one of the big things for us, and I've actually seen it live and direct, is that, you know, Ogun State has a lot of issues when it comes to security. However, Ogun State has a lot of action when it comes to making sure that we control that. We have not just increased police presence in the urban and rural areas, but we also have strong relationships with civil defense and agro rangers. So they're empowered to be able to coordinate movements with the police in the rural areas. We also have the Amotekun and the vigilante groups. So a lot more has been put into the vigilante groups to make sure that they are equipped. And Amotekun also in Ogun State has been very, very active in the rural communities. And what I also, on a regular basis, I get calls from farms at times that there's one issue or another. And so we work, our ministry works hand in hand with the SA Security, the Commissioner of Police, and the heads of other security agencies to make sure that there's rapid response to some of the activities that are going on. Because we're such an urban and rural state, we require a lot of security. We do ask for more federal government intervention when it comes to security forces, but at the state level also, we've put a lot of money to patrol vehicles, both Hiluxes and motorbikes and the likes, but also aerial surveillance as well. And that has also been helpful. So they've actually done a lot to make sure that the issue of security and also the issue of road network are being addressed. It's a stepwise approach, but we hope that before the end of this first term, that people will be able to see a vast difference between when we first entered office and the end of the first term. In terms of also making sure that land is available, what we've done is what we did was we cleared about 5,000 hectares of land for farmers to be able to get onto the field, because the issue of land clearing is a big issue. Number one. Number two, we also try to empower private enterprises that are in tractor hiring services to make sure that the tractors that are in the state are fully utilized, but to also make sure that people see Ogun State as a destination where they can actually link to farmers. And then a lot of the programs that we have make sure that mechanization is part of the program. So it becomes a system where we're training the farmers to focus on mechanization as a means to make it easier for them, to speed up the process, to lower the cost of labor, and to get quality out of what they do. And it also drives those who are in the mechanization service providers to have market and customers to engage, to be able to do land preparation, land clearing, and the likes. But then, of course, we just launched OLARMS, which is the Ogun State land portal for people who want to get C of Os on their land. The Ministry of Agriculture's land is in trust by the Ministry of Agriculture. It's acquisition land that is in trust. So that land is leased. That is not the same as the land under the Bureau of Lands and Surveys, which is land that you can get a C of O on. So we try to do that to also prevent land grabbing and other things. And then we do a lot in terms of litigation to help people to make sure that the lands that they have for agriculture are not encroached upon and not stolen by others who are looking to do property development and other things. There's land set aside for property development, and there's agricultural land in trust.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Angel. So this question now is for Dr. Kwasari. It says, Dr. Kwasari talked about making smallholders profitable. However, profitability needs to run through the value chain all the way to consumers. Buying from smallholders, however profitable individually they are, is less profitable for a trader or processor than buying from large farmers. This is because there are higher transaction costs, cost of aggregating commercial volumes, quality control, etc. So if we consider the entire value chain, can we ever get around striving for having larger, more professional farms? Dr. Andrew.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, I understand the question very well, because the person asking this question is asking from the constraints within, especially for aggregators. So that really, the question I need to address is, how can we ensure volume or scale by aggregating? So the question here is that how can we efficiently aggregate from smallholder farmers? That's the only snag that adds credence to this, to his closing remark about professional farmers. Professional farmers is not by size. Professional farmer is by yield, efficiency in yield, quality. So that means it's basically around quality and quantity, that you are able to get the right quantity at the right quality, regardless of land, because commercialization, as I said, is by square meter. What's your yield per square meter? Forget about the hectare top. It's good, but you start by at a square meter of land. How many seeds do you put? How much do you harvest? What's the cost of managing this square meter of land, and therefore what determines your bottom line. That is the primary indicators for commercialization. So, but then let me address the person's challenge. So the challenge then for us is that, what should Nigeria do? Or rather, if I would say Nigeria is not an island. What have other countries that are even 5-6 times our size, like China, or what is India doing, where you have litany of smallholder farmers all over? What did they do to make sure that they are exporting food, but not grown from massive lands that you need to throw in kilometers of land? But basically, they created efficiency to solve the problem of this aggregation. This gentleman said aggregating from individual farmers. And we use the word in Nigeria, cluster farming. How do you form clusters at street level in the rural community if there is such a thing, or community level? There are 50 farmers here. Each has an acre. This gives me 50 divided by 2.2 or 2.4. So I basically get how many hectares. If I'm able to do rice or yam, but let me stick to rice, it's not to Nigeria. And I'm saying that average yield that I'm going for in this cluster is 4 tons. So you can see, for an aggregator, it depends on whether you're aggregating for a large buyer or a medium buyer. When you have 50 hectares of land, 100 hectares of land, 1,000 hectares of land, aggregated by proximity, not by coalescing land, and you are able to give them knowledge. So I said earlier, there are 4 primary ladders in agriculture, 4 primary components. There's a primary production, secondary, tertiary, and there's consumption and trade. So if we're able to look at the constraints of these 4 and we deal with them such that we synergize, we create a jigsaw, we create a mechanics that the primary production is working well. I have said it before that the business of a smallholder farmer could mean anything but not sourcing for finance, sourcing for market, sourcing for storage, and all of that. His business is to tend a smallholder farmer, if we are to borrow from the Asian, Southeast Asian experience or Brazilian experience, is to tend to a special specificity that he even knows how many strands of rice is growing per square meter of his land, and he wants to bring them to term. It's like a pregnant woman who wants to make sure that she delivers. So his concern is, how does he bring his crop, his livestock, if there are 4 or 5, to term? Then from there, someone takes off. So it's that logistics of aggregation, and it's really an investable opportunity. I'm sure Farmcrowdy will smile if government at federal and state can enable them to know and relate with a minimum margin of error to the smallholder farmers, and they can reach out to them and say, okay, 100 of you are in this community, and we can see that each of you grows about 9 commodities. Is it possible that we can say, okay, let's find 2 staples for your livelihood and 2 commercial crops for your income? And then we will provide you with everything and aggregate all the commercial so that you have your staples for your livelihood. That is how these things, I always tell people, these things have been done before. Nigeria just need to honestly just sit back, gain knowledge, understand this thing and do it. So, sir, I still stand by my saying that, in fact, it is not more expensive to aggregate from smallholder farmers. In fact, it's less expensive if you take it from the possibility, from the fact of fair trade. That gives you 5 to 10% discount from the market price if you aggregate at the farm gate. So all of this, if we are able to follow these international policies and deal with it, it is very, very easy. And this is the only way we can ensure all-inclusive economic opportunity for growth for the families. In their millions today that have hereditary lands in 1 acre, 2 acres, whatever parcels of land, that today are not willing to sell it even for someone to collect it. But they will be willing if businesses evolve. Their educated children now want to say, okay, look, I'm going into services or financial services or ICT, and okay, I've known that family, his son wants to continue, and I want to sell off my 2 acres. So that guy gets 2 + 2, 4 acres. That's how we will grow. And I say the indicator, the primary indicator for a successful or a developed agri sector is not contributing 26% to GDP. Whenever I hear this 26% contribution to GDP in Nigeria, it tells me that our agri is still rudimentary, inefficient, unprofitable. By the time we get to, ag sector contributes single digit, below 6, or let me say global, below 7. So anything from 8 or from 7 down to 4, 5, 6.5, that's the overall ag contribution. It tells me that agriculture has specialized, value addition has taken over, domestic supply chain is developed, and we are now separating agriculture with agribusiness and services that come with it, manufacturing and all of that. So today we are lumping numbers and saying is the reason why we are intervening is that it contributes 26% of the GDP. It's a negative. The right thing is, how do we specialize this? And how do we specialize it systematically? And it has happened over and again. It started happening 300 years ago with the industrialization era. So, sir, I want you to understand that the problem is, how do we solve the constraints that militate against effective and efficient aggregation? And one part of it is knowing the farmers. Second is knowing what the market wants. Third is creating efficiency on the farmers' small land. And second is having fair trade. How do we contract farm in a fair way? And third, long-term business, the type of relationship Dr. Angelo was talking about, that the smallholder farmers and aggregators also understand that Nestle would rather want a long-term contract. So all of these things are doable, honestly. So that's my own take on this. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Andrew Kwasari.
Add to what Dr. Kwasari said is that, you know, he's spot on, because when you look at the land that we have, it's not that Nigeria doesn't have so much land that is already being used by agriculture. The yields, we need our farmers to be productive. If we didn't clear any more land today and we say we want to be sustainable, the first thing you focus on is how to take the farmers to a higher level of yield, because what we're doing in terms of yield is very low across value chains. So I would say that the private sector and technology is not just about access to market, but it's also about R&D for improved yield. And so some of the work that Farmcrowdy does is to help the farmers know what are the best practices to make sure that they can improve that yield, and what are the quality varieties, you know, of course, when they're doing rice, when they're doing cassava, to make sure that the farmers have all that they need to boost the yield on the land that they have. And so that's what we focus on, and that's what we're happy about.
All right. Thank you very much. Before we wrap up, I would like to know if you have any last remark from our panelists.
Last remark.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I or should I not?
You should.
Thank you. But first of all, before I make my last remark, Madam Moderator, it's just to say that I know I saw a question in the chat box that says mechanization is very expensive. What is government doing? And maybe just to shed light on the first component of mechanization. I think what this administration wants to do, we just need to make sure they do it, or it does it. I'm part of the administration. We just hold the government accountable. Let the Green Imperative Project see the day of light in Nigeria. Basically, it stops government from buying any equipment and deciding to sell it to farmers or whatever, whoever they think they're selling it to. But let this plan as it is go out. Very soon we will announce for bidding. The entrepreneurs bid. You have a service center. I think the least service center has a combination of about 14 tractors with all the implements for land preparation up to harvest. It has allowance for holding up to, is it 100,000 metric tons of grain silos? I think I want to be sure about that. But it has everything from land preparation to harvest, grading, drying, and packaging. Now, this guy in a local government in Ogun State just sells services. And the services are all that the smallholder farmers are interested in. As no smallholder farmer, no medium holder farmer in Nigeria needs a tractor for good day. You have less than 400 hectares of land. You need 400 hectares of land combined power demand to be profitable on 165 horsepower or 75 horsepower tractor. So when you see people with 10 hectares of land, 20 hectares of land owning a tractor, even borrowing from bank to buy a tractor, it's that we do not understand the ag business of mechanization. So all we need is, how do we enable services, mechanization services be sold to smallholder farmers? And that's exactly what the Green Imperative is all about. And I want to say that we are happy now that the new ambassador has resumed in Brazil and the negotiations are at the final stage. I hope that we will have at least half a year or 1 year to really get this implemented before the new administration, so that once the entrepreneurs bid, honestly, Dr. Kwasari is ready to leave the scene, because once your biddings go through, you don't need to know who is in Asoro. Your equipment will come. You have 10 to 15 years to pay back. Your loan will be booked against your bank. You have your lease period of after 2 years. You have every 6 monthly repayment plan. So it goes just enabled. Let's deal with that. That's what we want. We have to deal with. This is the type of heavyweight lifting that federal government and state government has to do. And for me, I tell people on mechanization, Nigeria has done it already. You have already granted sovereign guarantee on this loan, but the loan is to benefit private sector people to run it. When they are done payment, the facility becomes theirs. So that is it. Sustainability, efficiency management, profitability, all of it handed over. All federal government and state needs to do to make sure that your best entrepreneurs bid. And bidding is transparent. I hope so. I just pray. My final remark. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Andrew Kwasari. Thank you also, Dr. Angel Adelaja. It's been lovely having you on this.
So for my last remarks, I would just like to say that our focus is on building the future of agriculture now. So every decision that we take now is to make sure that in the next 5 years, we're seeing strong gains, not just the short-term gains. And I think that focus is on making sure that technology is driving the sector, making sure that agriculture is inclusive. So as much as we try to include private sector and make sure that private sector and large corporates are comfortable, we must carry the smallholder farmers along. We must make sure that smallholder farmers graduate out of poverty to make sure that they're productive in the way that they want to engage. That's focused on increased yield, efficiency, access to finance, and making sure that they have access to market. I like the concept of, and this is what we do, taking models that have worked or not worked so well, learning, create more efficient models. And so that's what we try to implement in Ogun State. And then lastly, I just want to wish Farmcrowdy a happy 5th year anniversary. They're pioneers in the ag tech space. We're happy to see what they're doing. We're happy to see the partnerships that they have with Ogun State and the partnerships they're also pursuing further with Ogun State. And we want more Farmcrowdies in Ogun State. So definitely for those who are interested, please make sure that you look at Ogun State as your destination for ag tech innovation. And
all right, thank you so much, Dr. Angel Adelaja. So over to you, Mr. Akindele Phillips.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for moderating. And a big thank you once more to Dr. Andrew Kwasari. Dr. Angel, thank you. You've always been very receptive. My team always disturb me week in, week out, and you've always made it happen for us. Thank you so much. My dear friend, Mr. Ibrahim, thank you. We always continue to brainstorm and see how we can intervene and bring in efficiency into the food value chain. And to everyone that's attended, thank you. Thank you for believing in us when no one did. Thank you for helping us to grow. We'll continue to work with the mandate to solving this food problem across Africa. We're not going to back down. Farmcrowdy will be known across Africa, solving the inefficiencies. Thank you so much for making our time for this event. And happy anniversary to us all. It's not only to Farmcrowdy colleagues, but everyone in this space. God bless you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So we say a very big thank you to everyone for joining us today. To our special dignitaries, Dr. Andrew Kwasari. We say thank you to Dr. Angel Adelaja. Thank you to Mr. Ibrahim Maigari. Thank you very much. To our virtual attendees, we're not leaving you out of this thank you part. We say a very big thank you to you. My name is Anu Oluwakpo Olufela. See you next year. Bye-bye.